Today I'm going to talk about the 5 reasons why walking is king for fat loss. And these 5 reasons are, number 1, walking burns calories. Number 2, walking triggers thermogenesis, which burns down body fat. Number 3, walking improves blood flow, which improves metabolism. Number 4, walking keeps your brain sharp so you can make good decisions when it comes to your food. And number 5, walking helps you sleep well. We're going to go through all of these and the reasons why and some of the practical tips for you. So are you ready? Let's dive in. All right. Number 1, walking is king because it burns calories. So it goes without saying that burning calories helps you lose weight, right? When we eat, we're putting fuel into our bodies, right? And we need that fuel in order to be able to operate our bodies. And the name we give our fuel is calories. Now, just like gasoline is fuel for our cars, we have a name for the amount of fuel that we load in. Those are called gallons or liters if you're actually European. But when we actually look at food as fuel, we give the unit of measure a different name as calories. That's as easy as it is. Food is our fuel, and we call them calories. The more food you eat, the more fuel you actually are adding to your body, all right? The more calories you're adding to your body. And these calories, the fuel, have to be stored someplace, all right? Especially if you overeat. Where's it going to go, all right? Well, the body will store extra fuel, extra calories in your body. It stores in your muscle, your liver, and your body fat. But your body fat is specifically the fuel tanks for the energy, the fuel that we actually eat. So you see, as you eat more and more food, in other words, consume more and more calories, your body fat will actually grow because the fuel tank actually gets loaded up. And in the case of body fat, it can actually stretch. And as you accumulate body fat, you're going to gain weight, all right? So because we all burn calories just being alive, right? Your organs need to function. There needs to be some powering for that. There's always some baseline consumption of fuel in the body. But if you really want to lose weight, you actually have to burn more calories than you're actually sticking into your body. That old adage of calories in and calories out, you know, there's some sense to it. It's a lot more complicated than that. But if you want to lose weight, you actually need to burn some of that fuel off. Walking is a great way to burn that fuel off because it increases your calorie consumption, all right, in a sustainable way. What I mean by that is that most people can actually fit walking into their regular lifestyle. Walking isn't asking a lot. You don't need to put on a wetsuit. You don't need to actually, buy special gym clothes. You don't need to schedule a trainer. Walking is super easy to actually do every day, all right? Listen, we're all busy, so we might not have time to go to the gym or schedule a tennis game, but you surely have time to go for a vigorous calorie burning walk. All right. So one of the things that I want to talk about is how beneficial walking is for calorie burn. Well, studies have shown that most people will burn about 30 to 40 calories for every 1,000 steps that you take. Now, 1,000 steps might sound like a lot, but have you ever gone on vacation and walked around, a new city to explore, maybe walked around a museum, you'll see you burn 1,000 calories pretty quickly. Now, obviously, the actual amount of calorie burn per walk depends on your body size, your overall weight, how fast you walk, how long you walk, a lot of other things like that. What else you might be doing while you're walking? Are you talking? Are you by yourself? Are you carrying anything? All those things can affect how many calories you burn while you're walking. But think about it this way. Every calorie counts when you actually burn it. And you can burn it very easily and sustainably while you're actually walking. All right? So that is one of the reasons that walking is king when it actually comes to losing weight. Let's talk about another benefit of walking, and that is that it triggers a process called thermogenesis. All right. Now, what is thermogenesis? Let me break it down for you. Thermos, actually means heat, and genesis means the generation of heat. So thermogenesis is the body's way of creating heat. And what's something that creates heat? Like a space heater. Every time you create heat, like you have to plug your space heater into the wall. If you remember from college days, it was a cold room, you got a space heater, maybe your parents sent you a space heater, you plugged it into the wall and it actually emitted heat to keep your feet warm, all right, in an otherwise cold winter. If you're in a place, if you went to a place that was cold in the winter, and guess what? That space heater needed energy, and you plug it into the wall, you get that electricity for the energy. Well, in your body, that energy that's used to burn off fuel, so thermogenesis, where do you think that energy comes from? Well, that energy is what is stored in your body fat, specifically your visceral fat. That's the harmful fat that lives in the tube of your body. It's kind of white. It's called white fat. White fat can be under the skin, called subcutaneous fat. White fat can also be deep inside the tube of your body, kind of surrounding organs. That's called visceral fat. Visceral for guts. So this is the fat that naturally forms around your gut. Listen, you could be a skinny person and have a lot of visceral fat, but certainly people who are much larger, okay, if you're obviously overweight or obese, you're going to have a lot of visceral fat as well. That is actually a big depot of fuel that's been stored up. And when you actually create thermogenesis, which walking does, you'll actually burn down some of that energy. So you'll start burning down the fuel in the tanks that have been stored in your visceral fat. All right. So let's talk about how thermogenesis actually occurs. Turns out that thermogenesis is actually triggered by a kind of body fat. So fat burns down fat, which is kind of an interesting concept, right? Let me explain it to you. So fat is a very, very important tissue in our body. In fact, it's one of the first tissues that forms, after your dad's sperm met your mom's egg and you were a ball of cells. Your circulation formed first, then your nervous system formed next, right? Circulation first because every organ is going to need a blood supply. Your nervous system because every organ is going to need an electrical supply to be able to control it. And shortly after that, you know what formed? Body fat. Now, body fat formed back then, and it formed around blood vessels, kind of like wrapping bubble wrap around a tube. And it's forming even before you had a face or a chin to have a double chin or a waist to actually have a muffin top. That's how early body fat forms. And the reason it forms that early in your life, in your development, while you're in your mom's womb, the reason it forms around blood vessels is because that's where your fuel is eventually going to go. You're going to eat fuel. It's going to get into your stomach. It's going to get absorbed into your bloodstream. And the body fat is going to pick up that energy from those blood vessels. All right. So that's where body fat actually forms. All right. And then eventually there's other types of fat that there's more and more, and it differentiates into different kinds of fat. And the two kinds of fat I want to talk to you about are called white fat and brown fat. And I'm actually going to tell you, when it comes to thermogenesis, it's the brown fat that's actually beneficial. So brown fat is good fat, and good fat, brown fat, burns down harmful fat, which is white fat when there's too much of it. All right, so brown fat is good fat. White fat can be bad fat if there's too much of it. So brown fat fights white fat. Fat versus fat in your body by triggering thermogenesis. Now, I'm going to explain this all to you. All right, so first, what is white fat? Because white fat is the thing that we normally see when we step out of the shower, right? You're naked, you're drying off, and out of the corner of your eye, you actually see your reflection, and you might see a lump or a bump that you don't like to have to see. So what do you do the next thing after you dry off? You step on the scale. If that number isn't exactly the one you were hoping for, you're going to go, I got to lose some weight, or I got to go to the gym, or I got to do something about this. I got to go on a diet, right? That's actually how we naturally associate seeing body fat and then measuring body fat. But it's a lot more complicated than that. I want to explain to you how. So, first of all, white fat is the harmful fat when there's too much of it, right? White versus brown. Brown is good. White is potentially bad. But white fat, when it's formed, while it's good, actually comes in two different areas of your body. One area is under the skin. In fact, we call that kind of white fat subcutaneous white fat under the skin. All right. And you can see that. Okay. That kind of fat under the skin is your double chin. That kind of thing is the fat under the arm. That kind of fat is the muffin top. That kind of fat's in your thigh. It's in your butt. Subcutaneous white fat is usually the kind of fat that you don't want to have. You're trying to get rid of, all right, in order to be able to look better. And listen, to me, that's also very important. You got to feel good about your body. So, you know, if it's about vanity, that's fine. But I'm here to talk about health and what's really important, because white fat can live in another place. And that place is not under the skin. It's deep inside your belly as visceral fat. So visceral fat, the fat around your guts, is also a kind of white fat. White fat's under the skin, subcutaneous fat. White fat is deep in the tube of your body. That is visceral fat. And both of them are actually quite important. Like they actually do healthy things for you. But when there is too much of it, that is actually when it becomes dangerous. All right. Now, let me explain to you, first of all, what fat normally does, so you can kind of understand fat isn't something to be feared or sneered at, and you don't want to be hating on fat. In fact, we need our body fat. All right. Remember I told you fat actually forms pretty early while you're still in your mom's womb, and it's a critical organ. That's right. You heard me say it. Your body fat is an actual organ in your body, like your liver, like your heart, like your spleen, like your brain. You actually need this fat organ. So what does this organ called fat actually do? Well, fat's a cushion, right? And thank goodness we actually have a cushion, because, well, if we didn't have any body fat and no cushion, we tripped on the rug and fell on the ground, our organs might go splat, might split open. And some organs are pretty delicate. Good thing we've got some cushion, all right? That's like the, styrofoam peanuts in packing. Things aren't going to break when you actually have some cushion, all right? No, so that's one thing that fat does. The second thing that fat does is that fat is a fuel tank. Remember I told you about that fuel tank. When you're eating, all right, you're going to need some energy that's in your bloodstream just to power up your body. And if you're moving around, you're going to use it right away. But anything extra gets stored sort of in your muscles, in your body fat, in your liver. And your body fat basically is a fuel tank, all right? Food is fuel. Fuel has to get stored away. And where is it stored? It stores it in the fuel tanks, which is your body fat. And whenever that fuel is being stored, it expands your body fat, right? Now think about it. If you're actually filling up your car's fuel tank with gasoline, that's a metal canister that's inside the body of your car. All right, you fill that up, that canister, that metal can isn't going to stretch. It just fills right to the top, and then it goes, your nozzle is going to go click, and you're not going to be able to put any more gas into it. Thank goodness, right? Now, what would happen if you actually kept on filling it up? There was no clicker to stop the flow of gas once your tank is full. Well, then the fuel would run out of the tank, down the side of the car, pool around your shoes. You'd be standing in a dangerous, toxic, flammable mess, right? So you don't want that. So the people who design the gas pumps actually figured it out. When the gas tank is full, it actually triggers a clicking sound that actually disengages, so you can't the pump, so their pump won't actually put any more gas into your car. That's smart. Our body doesn't have that. And in fact, our fat cells can stretch. So it's not like a car's fuel tank, which is a metal canister, and you just fill up to the top and that's it. Nope. Our fat cells, your fat cells, can actually stretch. Okay. In fact, you can stretch 3 times its size. So here's your fat cell. You're eating, you're storing the energy, whoop, it fills up 3 times its size. All right. That's like a water balloon. Remember when you were a kid and you bought a water balloon and it's kind of like flabby, and you put it up to the sink, you put the end around the spigot of the sink, and then you turn on the water. What does it do? It fills right up. Hey there, check this out. I've got a special resource on the 5 science-based ways to lose fat that I made just for you, and it's free. Many of us want to lose weight for our own reasons, but I'm here to tell you that there's an even better reason to lose harmful excess visceral fat for your health. And guess what? In this resource, I share the 5 things that anyone can do to lose harmful excess body fat. All you have to do is click the link below to access the resource. Now, back to the video. All right. So in the case of body fat, it fills up to 3 times its size. And if you overeat, all right? And you're going to keep on filling up these gas tanks, and that's really how extra body fat grows. You need some for fuel. You want to fill up on your fuel. You want to have enough energy, all right? But if day in and day out you are overflowing your fuel tank, overfilling your fuel tank, you're going to wind up just making a lot more fat mass, because these fuel tanks are going to expand, blow up like a balloon. Another's going to blow up like a balloon. Another's going to blow up a balloon. Oh, we're out of fat cells? No problem. We'll make some new fat cells using stem cells. And I have another video where I talk about stem cells, but now you're blowing up that fat cell, the new fat cell, and there's more. You blow that one up, and you can kind of see where you're going to pile up all these big expanded fat cells, and that's how you can actually grow. That's how you're going to gain weight, but that's how you're going to grow body fat as well. Now, the subcutaneous white fat, when it grows, look, this is how you get the big flabby underarm, or the double chin, or the muffin top, right? Or the thigh fat, or the butt fat. But the problem is when actually you are overfilling the fuel tank in your viscera, your visceral body fat. You know what that is? That does inside the tube of your body. Now that fat's growing, and it's like growing like a glove that starts to wrap itself around and strangle your organs. And the strangulation isn't the issue, all right? It's not literally strangulating your organs, but it's actually coating and covering your organs like a glove. And then what happens is that when fat is actually that big, it outgrows its blood supply. So then the fat inside the fat, the center of the fat, isn't getting enough blood supply. Does that make sense? So basically, as you're growing this big amount of fat, all right, and it's only got its own blood supply when it started with, as the fat mass gets bigger, the center of that fat is going to become oxygen starved because it doesn't have enough blood supply. That's called hypoxia, and that is inflammatory. And that's one of the reasons why too much excess visceral fat is very, very dangerous, because it's actually pro-inflammatory, meaning it actually can ignite and become inflammation, right? Now, enter brown fat, right? If white fat is wiggly jiggly, lumpy and bumpy, and distributed so you can see it in a mirror, or it's actually inside your body. Now, remember I told you, even skinny people, thin people can have they may not have a muffin top, but they can actually grow a lot of harmful visceral fat inside the tube of their body. That's overall dangerous, all right? And you're going to gain weight, and it's going to be dangerous for your health. But enter brown fat. Brown fat is the hero fat that can burn down this extra fat. Now, how does it do this? Well, if white fat is wiggly, jiggly, lumpy, and bumpy, and close to the skin, brown fat is actually wafer thin. And it's not close to the surface. In fact, it's close to the bone, deep under your skin. And in fact, it's plastered on both sides of your neck, under your breastbone, a little bit between your shoulder blades, a little bit in your belly, all right? And so this is where brown fat is. And you don't need a lot, because when brown fat is triggered and ignites, what does it do? It's like that space heater, or the analogy I like to give is kind of like gas burner on the top of your stove. You know what that's like? You want to boil some water or heat up a stew. What do? You go to the range and you turn it on. Click, 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 whoosh. Now you got a fire, and it's hot. And you can put your pot on there to heat the water, right? And in your kitchen, that click, 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 whoosh, that flame is actually burning because there's gas being fed into it, maybe from your street, like your town's supply of gas. Or it could be that you have a tank on the side of your house supplying it. In any event, it's burning energy, right? Okay, now in your body, walking actually triggers thermogenesis. Click, 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 whoosh, right? So walking will actually do this. And guess what? Where does that fuel come from to power up the thermogenesis from walking? Your brown fat gets that energy from white fat. Brown fat draws down the energy from white fat, specifically visceral fat. So this is how the good fat can burn down the bad fat, excess bad fat, through the process of thermogenesis. So you're going to actually lose weight when you're actually burning up. So fuel. So walking itself will burn down fuel because you're using more calories. And then thermogenesis, which is triggered by walking, will also burn down more fuel. Okay, kind of see, this is what we're talking in this video about, why walking is so important. All right. Now, I want to tell you a little bit why brown fat actually looks brown. all right? Okay, so in order to be able to trigger off heat, generate heat, thermogenesis, you need batteries, right? You need fuel cells that can actually generate the heat, all right? Like the nuclear reactor. So the energy fuel cells in brown fat are called mitochondria, mitochondria. Now, you probably heard about mitochondria. A lot of people are talking about it, but they're basically the battery packs that power up our cells. They give our cells energy. All right. Now, as you might imagine, brown fat, because it has to generate heat, all right, it's got a lot of mitochondria, all right, packed with mitochondria. And mitochondria, guess what, have a lot of iron in them, iron, the metal, all right. Now, what happens when you think happens when you actually have a lot of iron sitting around for a while, right? So what's made out of iron? Pile of nails. So if you've ever taken a pile of nails, they're shiny when you open up the box, and then you're going to put them outside on your porch, right? It's going to be humid, or it's going to be raining, or it's going to be foggy. And guess what? The iron in those nails is going to oxidize. What color do they turn? They turn brown, orange brown, right? The nails will actually rust. And what happens when you take a pile of nails and you bring them outside is that they're going to oxidize and turn rusty. And what color is that? They're going to turn brown or orange brown. And that's exactly why your brown fat is brown, because they've got a lot of mitochondria that's got a lot of iron, and that iron will oxidize in your body. And so the mitochondria will actually look brown. A lot of that brown mitochondria will make the entire tissue, the entire kind of fat, look brown as well. Now you're not going to forget about why brown fat looks brown. A lot of people have no idea why it looks brown. I just gave you a little clue, all right, a really kind of fun fact about why, and that is because brown fat has a lot of mitochondria, and the mitochondria has a lot of iron, all right? So remember, mitochondria, they're the batteries. Where are they going to get their fuel from? White fat. So just remember this. Brown fat is good fat. White fat can be extra and dangerous, excess and dangerous. So brown fat can burn down white fat if you trigger thermogenesis, all right? Very cool fact. You should know how it is. And by the way, walking turns on thermogenesis, all right? And the other thing that walking does is it actually helps your body develop more of that beneficial brown fat. So now we've actually talked about three things that walking does. Number one, walking actually just chews up calories, which is good, right? So you're burning down extra calories. All right. Number two, walking triggers thermogenesis. All right. So now it's brown fat going click, 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 whoosh, and it's burning down the fuel stored in your excess body fat. So you're going to lose weight. And number three is that walking actually helps your body generate more of that good beneficial brown fat. Now you've got even more to help out with that click, 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 whoosh burn down of the harmful white fat as well. All right. That's the first two things that I'm going to tell you about why walking is actually king. Let's talk about another one. All right. And that's improved blood flow. Now, blood flow is a really important thing. A lot of people don't realize this, but that you and I, all the adults watching this, we've got 60,000 miles worth of blood vessels packed inside our body. That is so extensive that if you were to pull out all the blood vessels in your body and line them up end to end, you'd form a line that would encircle the earth twice. All right. That's a lot of mileage, so to speak, but it's also a lot of surface area. So your blood vessels your circulation, absolutely critical for operating your body. Right? Now, it's probably obvious why good blood flow is good for good health, right? Your heart squeezes, it pumps the blood out. A column of blood jets right out of your heart, goes into your circulation, into the arteries, and then it gets delivered through smaller and smaller and smaller channels until they go to the capillaries. These are blood vessels that are as thin as a human hair, and they basically bring the oxygen and nutrients to feed every single cell, every single organ in your body. All right. Blood flow is critical for good metabolism as well, right? Let me explain. Remember, your metabolism actually encompasses a lot of things, including when you eat food, eat your fuel, your energy, the calories. You eat that, it's got to go into your stomach, gets absorbed into your bloodstream. And then once it's in your bloodstream, blood vessels, your blood flow is actually going to carry the energy all throughout your body, all right? And the more efficient and effective your circulation is, the more efficient that process of metabolism is going to be as well. And that's really, really important, all right? Remember, your blood vessels are the highways and byways of your health. So you want to keep them really healthy. The other thing that's really important is your blood vessels, your blood flow, the flow that goes through the blood vessels is important for delivering hormones that you need for a healthy metabolism as well. So what kind of hormones are we talking about? I'm not talking about estrogen or progesterone. This is not a menopause video. I'll cover that separately. But I'll tell you that there is a hormone involved in metabolism that you're familiar with. That's insulin, right? Insulin is made by an organ in your belly called the pancreas, all right? So when you eat food, your pancreas is going to release some insulin. It's a protein. Gets into your bloodstream. And insulin basically helps draw the energy, the glucose from the food that you ate, the energy from the fuel, and into your cells. So it basically leaves enough in your bloodstream to operate the body. It puts some in the muscle, but actually draws your, the insulin will draw your blood sugars in, all right, into your cells and hold them and store them into body fat. So think about insulin as sort of the whole process of taking that pump and sticking it into the nozzle into the gas tank and filling up that tank. That's what insulin does. It fills up our body. Now remember, we're trying to burn that stuff down, right? If you're actually trying to lose body fat, and we're talking about walking being king. So walking will actually do that. But I'm just telling you about hormones, right? So this is a hormone called insulin, which I'm sure you've heard about, which helps to prevent glucose from building up to really, really high levels. And it will gradually draw that energy from glucose into our cells, all right? That's one hormone from your pancreas. And guess what? Good blood flow is absolutely important to be able to get that insulin distributed. If you don't have good blood flow, your insulin is not going to have as efficient a route in order to be able to have its beneficial effect. But there's another hormone that's involved with weight loss and metabolism as well, and that is a hormone called adiponectin. And do you know where adiponectin, the hormone, is actually made? What tissue makes it? Take a guess. It's body fat. Your body fat makes adiponectin, all right? And that adiponectin is a hormone that works in partnership with insulin. So these are two buddies that get together and they need each other. And so insulin needs adiponectin to be able to do its job to draw that blood sugar into your body. And in fact, if you don't have insulin, you're not going to be able to draw sugar into your body. Blood sugar is going to rise. That's type 1 diabetes, and to a lesser extent, type 2. But basically, no insulin, no blood sugar in your body, and blood sugar is going to rise in your bloodstream, right? That's the blood sugar, elevated blood sugars. But the other thing is that adiponectin is the other hormone that makes insulin do its job better. So adiponectin made by body fat helps insulin made by the pancreas. They work hand in hand, okay? They're like two partners working together, all right, sitting next to each other in order to be able to draw energy that you've eaten and store it into your cells. So that comes from body fat, the adiponectin, and the insulin comes from your pancreas. Another reason why healthy amounts of body fat are really, really important. And in fact, if you're like some of these bodybuilders, they'll get way down, 3% body fat, 2% body fat, all right? Now you don't even have enough to make adiponectin, all right? So therefore, your insulin is not going to be working optimally. And people who are really, really working on losing body fat, like body sculptors, all right, they don't have good metabolism because you know what? Their insulin doesn't actually work properly. So you have insulin insensitivity. In other words, you don't have enough adiponectin, all right? So this is another reason how body fat and the hormone that it creates, it works with insulin, which is another hormone created by the pancreas, all right? If you have poor circulation, you can't deliver the insulin well, and you can't actually deliver the adiponectin because when your fat makes adiponectin, you need good circulation to distribute it to wherever the insulin is working. Poor circulation, all right, means that you're not getting these hormones throughout the body very, very efficiently. Where do we actually see poor circulation? Well, we see it in cardiovascular disease. This is the most common chronic disease in the developed world. So when your blood flow is slow or decreased, so you've got poor circulation, guess what? Your metabolic hormone delivery is going to be slow as well. All right, and then you're going to wind up actually not burning down the fat, and you're going to gain weight as well. All right, so a poor circulation keeps you from losing weight, regardless of what you do with diet and lifestyle. All right, so what's the role of walking in all of this? Well, walking is a great way to stimulate blood flow in your legs. You know why? Because your muscles, the muscles of your legs, are some of the biggest muscles in your body. When you're walking, chugging away walking, the muscles are actually having to contract. And when they're doing it, they're squeezing the blood vessels. They're squeezing blood flow. So you get better blood flow in your legs, translating to better blood flow to your heart, to and from your heart. All right. And then when you get aerobic exercise, now your heart and your lungs are working and your muscles are working. And you've really got something going on here in terms of like getting that blood flow going. All right. So the more you walk, the faster you walk, the faster your heart's going to go, your heart rate's going to go up, and then your heart's going to pump faster. And that faster pump is going to actually jet the blood throughout your circulation more and more efficiently. All right. Now, along the way, something else happens that you need to know about. All right. When you've got really good blood flow and walking, that process stimulates stem cells. That's right. Stem cells that come right out of your bone marrow in order to be able to get into your body as well. And the stem cells actually help you to heal from the inside out. You don't even know what's going on, but those stem cells are doing their job, right? When we're born, we all have about 70 million stem cells, all right? Most of them hide out like bees going back to the hive in our bone marrow, which is sort of like the core of our bones. Have you ever seen a chicken bone? You break it open, it's like kind of like a little black thing inside the center of the bone, or a dog bone. If you take a look at the middle of it, there's a big hollow chamber. That's where bone marrow actually goes. The marrow is kind of like the matrix that is stuffed inside the hollow of a bone. And the stem cells live in there, like bees living in the honeycomb, all right? That's where your stem cells are. And guess what? Walking calls out stem cells. And these stem cells actually get into your bloodstream, need good circulation, remember. And with that good circulation, you know what those stem cells do? They help to repair parts of your body, like a highway crew repairs potholes on the highway, right? You report there's a pothole in the highway. You don't want somebody behind you to blow their tire out. You call up the department, they'll send a road crew out there, and the road crew is like the stem cell that can regenerate our circulation, all right? Very, very cool that walking will actually get these stem cells to come out more and more. And these stem cells will roam around your whole body. You can't feel them. They're invisible, basically, but they roam around your body looking for things to repair, all right? And if you have an area of poor blood flow, which is bad for metabolism, which is bad for weight loss, but if you have an area of poor metabolism, guess what? Your stem cells will spot that area and will work to fix it. That's why this is important. This is why we're talking about this. All right, walking is king for another reason, because you can actually get stem cells to be able to come out of your bone marrow to help to repair tissue. So in addition to burning calories, walking speeds up blood flow, and walking brings stem cells into the system, and walking with better circulation stimulates the delivery of hormones like insulin, like adiponectin, throughout your system to improve your metabolism as well. Just remember, I told you that adiponectin is made by fat cells, and this is one of the reasons why healthy amounts of body fat are really, really important. What you don't want is excess body fat that becomes inflamed, and that inflammation can spill out into your bloodstream and go to all the other organs in your body. It's like a campfire, which is a good kind of a fire, right? Keep your arm warm. You can tell ghost stories around it. But if you actually wind up having a wildfire, which would be like what inflammation in body fat is, that's like having the embers of a fire, of a campfire, come out of the campfire, go into the woods, and then set off a forest fire. Now your whole body's inflamed as well. Not good, all right? So this is actually walking, another reason why walking is actually really, really beneficial. So think about all the things we talked about. Walking burns calories. Walking triggers thermogenesis, which is burning down extra body fat. Walking triggers the body to make more brown fat. Walking improves your circulation, which is really, really beneficial. Walking improves the use of hormones in your body, like insulin, like adiponectin, which actually keeps your metabolism really good, streamlined, so you're able to lose weight. Walking is pretty king, all right? And that, I think, is really important for you to remember. Number 4 reason that walking is king is that walking keeps your brain, your noggin, sharp. And why is that important? Well, walking not only keeps your blood flowing to your legs, it also brings better blood flow to your brain as well. And why is that connected to weight loss? Because you need your brain in good working order, good shape, in order to be able to have good memory, good cognition, which is really being able to solve problems and take in information and to learn, executive functions, which is, be able to prioritize things and solve complexities, the things that we do in everyday life, all right? You need to have your brain in good shape, with a good blood supply in order to it. And walking actually has been shown to improve blood flow to the brain. And indeed, studies in patients have shown that when you walk, it actually keeps up the volume of your brain so your brain doesn't shrink. Now, as we age, all right, people that are physically inactive, their brain tends to actually shrink a bit in their skull, all right? Not something you want, right? If you want actually a full, sharp brain, you need to actually keep it well watered, meaning you need good blood flow. And walking is a great way of doing this, right? You can do that every single day. You're doing a favor to your brain. Want to know how much your brain weighs? I bet a lot of people don't know this. Brain weighs about 3 1/3 pounds, all right? So a little heavier than a pair of tennis shoes. That's pretty heavy, all right? It's got a lot of water. And studies have shown that after the age of 40, your brain shrinks about 5% every 10 years. So every decade after 40. So from 40 years old onwards. So when by the time you get to 50, your brain has shrunk by about 5%, all right? By the time you're 60, it's shrunk another 5%, and it even continues to shrink faster and faster once you hit your 70s, all right? So anybody watching this, if you're over 40, your brain's already on its way to shrinking, but walking can actually prevent your brain from getting smaller, from shrinking. Another reason to actually walk, right? Like, again, I could tell you to work out. I could tell you to do cardio. I could tell you to spin, ride a bike, play tennis. I'm just telling you, walking is king. Walking is the one thing that any of us can do, and it prevents the thinning out, the shrinking of your brain. Now, look, I got to confess to you, we don't really understand why your brain shrinks during aging. But when a brain shrinks, one thing that we do know is that you're losing neurons. You're losing the nerves that actually connect one part of your brain to the next part of your brain. They send the signal to the different lobes of your brain in order to be able to have a sharp mind. So if you want a sharp mind over the age of 40, walk. Simple, easy peasy way, something you can do to improve your circulation, all those other beneficial things. And now I've just given you one that I think you're going to pay attention to, is that you want your brain not to shrink, so better go for a walk. You want to make a good decisions? You don't have to be the captain of the starship, all right, to be making good decisions. Even if you're trying to figure out how to run your household, you need to make a decision. If you're actually trying to figure out how to, not only how to do your job, but how to get to work, you need actually to be able to have good memory of what the pathway is and how to operate a motor vehicle. And we all know people who, if you don't know somebody, you probably have heard the stories when people actually get older and you see more people with dementia, which is when they're losing their cognition, their executive function, their memory. All right. This is where their brains are shrinking as well. So we all want to kind of avoid that. Something as simple as walking can actually prevent your brain from shrinking. Okay. So, by the way, the other reason you want a good brain is you need to be able to make good decisions, right? There's consequences to making bad decisions, right? Don't run that red light. You won't actually get into a car accident. Don't pet that dog that looks like it has rabies. You're not going to get bitten by the dog, all right? So some basic things. But when your brain is clear, all right, you're better able to make the decisions. Should I eat healthy food, plant-based foods, or should I eat junk food? All right. When you're clear in your mind, good blood flow, all right, one of the things that happens is that you're like, I'm going to pick the healthy choice as opposed to the unhealthy choice. That's something you can do when you've got good cognitive function. All right. Here's another part where you can actually make a good decision. You got the food on the plate. Let's call it healthy food. All right. But it could be any food. Here's a question. You need a sharp brain to answer. Should I overeat? All right. Should I eat as much as I can? Should I get seconds? All these things? Nope, you shouldn't. But in order for you to figure that out, you need a sharp brain. All right. Now, the other thing is, if you wanted to get more complex, if I told you that extending your natural fasting period, so you normally fast when you're sleeping, and when you're fasting, you're burning down body fat. All right. So walking, you're burning down body fat. But when you're sleeping, for a different reason, you're also burning down body fat. If I told you, like, you should extend that period that you're fasting, extend it from the time you're sleeping. How do you do that? Well, you don't eat before bedtime, and then you wait for, an hour or more after you wake up in the morning, and then you got to do the math. How many hours between dinner and bedtime? How many hours are you sleeping? I hope 8 hours. And then you're going to wait another hour. After that, you add 1. You're doing some math here, some simple math, but you're also keeping track of what it is you're actually trying to achieve. You need a sharp brain to be able to do that. All right. And of course, selecting the foods. If you want to actually have a diet that's filled with delicious plant-based foods, all right, you want to do a little planning. That requires a sharp brain. You might want to actually make the food yourself, which is, I encourage people to learn how to cook, because then you know exactly what you're putting in your own body. You know how much to put in your own body. You know how much to buy. To learn a recipe takes good brain power, all right? So all of these things, all of these decisions will help you lose weight, improve your metabolism, and improve your overall health. And it relies on good brain function. All right. So this is an area of research that I'm doing now, is taking a look at how to actually preserve brain function as we age, how to avoid some of the challenges that you get when people start getting dementia, which isn't one condition. Dementia is a lot of different things that can lead to dementia, lack of cognition, executive decision become very, very difficult. And whether that's Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or any other number of diseases that are called dementia, this is actually something that I want to tell you, that walking is king, because walking can actually prevent you from getting into that jam. Well, hello. If you're looking to take control of your health and you want to use food as medicine to optimize your health, then I invite you to check out my Eat to Beat Disease course. I personally developed all the materials. It is fully online and packed with practical, science-based strategies and everyday tips that you can start using right away to boost your body's natural defenses that protect your health and fight disease. So whether you're wanting to prevent a disease or overcome one, or whether you just want to feel your best, my Eat to Beat Disease course has everything you need to make powerful changes in your life. Learn more about it by clicking the link below. So, walking helps preserve brain size and brain function. Walking helps to maintain metabolism and is good for cardiovascular health. All right. And by the way, this whole idea of blood flow in the brain, your brain's got 400 miles worth of blood vessels packed inside it, right? Your whole body's got 60,000 miles. Well, 400 miles of that's packed inside your brain. So you want to be able to keep that blood flowing for brain health, and walking is a great way to do it. All right. And that prevents your brain from shrinking. And by the way, the other thing is that walking improves your mood. Everybody feels a little bit better after they've gone for a walk, even if you're in a crummy mood ahead of time. And the reason is that you're actually exercising, and it changes your neurotransmitters. It's good for mood and mental wellness, mental well-being. In fact, people who are depressed, all right, they have a hard time sticking to healthy behaviors, especially when it comes to weight loss. So if you're anxious, if you're depressed, go for a walk. That can actually help clear up your head a little bit so you can make better decisions when it comes to losing weight in a healthy way. All right. And by the way, walking to keep yourself in a good mood, that's worthwhile, right? Not too difficult to do, and it's worthwhile. If you're doing it with a friend, you're actually going to share a good experience together, friend or family member. If you're doing it while you're listening to music, whatever, you're going to actually, now you're doing something from you're doing self-care for yourself. And that's actually by yourself. And that's actually can be a good thing as well, because it doesn't overburden the mind with thinking or interacting with other people. Sometimes we need to have a little bit of quiet time in order to take good care of ourselves. All right. Now, finally, the fifth reason that walking is king when it comes to weight loss is that walking actually helps you sleep better. All right. Now, why is that important for weight loss? I'm going to tell you is that basically when you're walking with physical activity, you get better sleep because, number one, you've actually exercised more, you burn some more calories. That, any kind of exercise will help you get a little bit better sleep. And in fact, walking will help you fall asleep more quickly. You know what it's like, right? Like when you get into bed, you don't want to be tossing and turning and, kind of like feeling like you got to sit up or your mind is racing. Nope. You want to be able to get right into bed, pull the covers over, and pretty much, boom, fall asleep just like that. Walking actually helps you do that. And not only does it help you fall asleep more quickly, walking helps you get better quality sleep. All right. Now, how do we know that what quality sleep is? Well, we can actually measure it. So the whole field of research, and really medicine, so sleep medicine or sleep researchers, they're actually able to study the brains of people while they're sleeping to figure out who's actually getting better quality, deeper sleep than people who have insomnia or wake up all the time or, just are fitful all night long. And what they found, researchers found, is that when they looked at the brain waves of people who have been walking before sleeping, they found walkers actually have better electrical measurements of their brain waves during the sleeping time. So in other words, let me say it again. Researchers have found that people who actually walk before going to sleep have healthier waves, brain waves, that allow them to fall asleep faster. Now, these brain waves are called slow waves, and I don't have time to go through all the waveforms of an EEG, an electroencephalogram, which measures your brain patterns, right? So you probably have seen this in a movie, perhaps. Take all these electrodes, put them all over your head, and now you're just measuring continuously what the electrical signals that are firing inside your head. It's kind of a mind-blowing concept, literally, okay, when you think about measuring brain waves. But walking actually shows that you actually get better, they're called slow waves, when you actually fall asleep, all right? Now, this is all measured in something called a sleep lab. So basically, you got to leave your house, pack a bag with your toiletries, and you go literally into a laboratory, and they've got a cot or small bed there, and you just hang out there until you fall asleep, and they hook you up so they can actually measure all the different aspects of your brain waves during sleep. Now, the other thing that's been studied is how much exercise you need in order to be able to get to a good quality sleep state, right? Well, it's about 30 minutes of aerobic exercise, like brisk walking is, right? So think about, this is what I'm trying to tell you. Walking is king for all these reasons we talked about. How much walking? About 30 minutes if you're actually walking quickly enough so that, it's hard for you to hold a conversation. That's like really aerobic exercise. You're demanding a lot of oxygen, and you're using your muscles in a way where your body is actually completely in sync with actually getting good cardiovascular exertion. That's what aerobic exercise is. And brisk walking, when you get there, in order to be able to get good quality sleep, how much do you need to walk? How long? About 30 minutes of vigorous brisk walking. All right. Okay, now let's talk about what better sleep does for your metabolism. All right. Well, first, deep sleep is better for brain health. And brain health, as we've already heard about, is good for making better decisions, better cognition, better memory, and helps you stick with healthy lifestyle, which is really important if you're trying to lose weight. All right. If you don't want to overconsume food, good brain health will actually remind you to do that. And if you're trying not to overload on calories because you're trying to lose weight, good brain health will actually help you remind yourself about that as well, not to overload on things, right? And one of the things a good brain actually also does, it helps you remember to stay away from eating ultra-processed foods. I'm not going to spend any more time in this video talking about why ultra-processed foods are bad. There's so many videos out there talking about this, but anything that comes in a bag or a box or a can that's got tons of additives to it and chemicals, artificial preservatives, artificial flavoring, artificial coloring, artificial seasonings, sweeteners, all right? All added sugars, all those things actually are not good decisions to eat when it comes to weight loss. And having a sharp brain that comes from having good sleep is actually very, very helpful for you to be able to actually achieve your goal. Now, the other thing about good sleep, good quality sleep, is that you're not going to be as brain foggy in the morning. And let me explain to you why that happens. It turns out your brain has a sewer system called the glymphatic system, G-L-Y-M-P-H, glymphatic system. Sounds like lymphatic system, right? Your lymph nodes drain, your lymph system drains extra fluid in your body. The glymphatics are basically the same kind of thing, except it's in your brain. I like to think about it like the sewer systems underneath Paris, underground sewers, hidden in plain sight. They're there, they're functioning, but your glymphatics at night actually open up, the sewers open up to drain the toxins that have accumulated from your brain during the day. And this happens when you get good quality sleep. In fact, it only really happens when you get good quality sleep, which is why walking sets you up for good quality sleep, which sets you up for opening up those sewer channels, which sets you up for draining the toxins that accumulated during the day, which then is important for you to have clarity of brain and good brain function, right? So all this is all connected together, and that's why exercise like walking, aerobic exercise like walking, brisk walking, all right, is very, very important for brain health, all right? This is, something that is so obvious, but you probably don't know about the glymphatics. So the other thing about good quality sleep is good for gut health. Now, we know when you sleep really, really well, your gut bacteria, your microbiome actually is healthier. And if you take people who are sleep deprived, right, and this can be studied in the sleep lab, basically have people pull up continuous all-nighters, and you measure your gut health, and your gut health goes down, all right? Your gut microbiome becomes unhealthy, right? And so because our gut health, our gut bacteria communicates to our brain, gut health is equal to brain health. When you actually are messing up your gut by not sleeping well, guess what? Eventually you're going to interfere with your brain function as well. The gut is not going to communicate in the right way with your brain. The other thing about gut bacteria that you want to have happen because you're getting good quality sleep is that good, healthy gut bacteria helps to streamline your metabolism so your blood glucose is well regulated. I don't like to get into this language of glucose spike and glucose crash. I think those are extreme words that are used by well-meaning people, but actually conveys the wrong idea. What you want is really your body to be able to just smoothly manage the blood sugars. It's okay if it's a little high sometimes, as long as your body's normal and you're able to, your metabolism to bring it back down, that's actually fine. And this idea of a crash, it's more coming back up to normal levels. That's actually fine. So good quality sleep, good gut health helps you actually maintain those sort of more normal, steady levels of blood glucose. We're well-regulated blood glucose, all right? And by the way, good quality sleep also and good gut health helps you be insulin sensitive. We talked about that. Your body will respond to insulin by drawing it into your bloodstream, works with adiponectin, all right, the partner to insulin, in order to be able to bring that blood sugar in. Look, good gut health makes that happen as well. And good gut health comes in part from also sleeping well. So listen, if you're like, who needs sleep? You need sleep, my friend. It's very, very important for all kinds of health defense systems, and including brain health as well. The other thing, by the way, is that if you sleep well, your gut bacteria is going to be happier, and they actually make something called short-chain fatty acids. Short-chain fatty acids. It's a metabolite that your healthy gut bacteria make. Gets in your bloodstream when your happy bacteria make them. Guess what it does? It actually lowers inflammation, right? Now, lowering inflammation also is very helpful if weight loss is one of your goals, because inflammation can affect all the organs in your body, including your insulin sensitivity, including your brain, including your pancreas, frankly, and it certainly affects your body fat as well. So these are all tied together that actually in order to be able to get good sleep means good gut health, means good brain health, means good metabolism. Now, I went through a lot, okay, to try to prove my point that walking is king when it comes to weight loss. So I just want to recap for a little bit. Walking is good because it burns calories, right? So you want to actually burn more calories than you're eating in order to have a deficit, and that's how you lose weight. Walking is also good because it triggers thermogenesis, click, 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 whoosh. And then your brown fat, your healthy brown fat, will burn down excess harmful body fat, white fat. Brown fat will fight white fat. Brown fat will burn down the fuel and white fat, and you'll lose weight. That's a process called thermogenesis, and walking actually brings that on. Number 3, walking brings good blood flow to your brain and the rest of your body in order to be able to maintain good metabolism. So your hormones can do their job, your fat hormones, your pancreas hormones, the adiponectin, the insulin. And of course, good blood flow in the brain is absolutely important to keep the brain enriched and in healthy shape so it doesn't thin out and you start losing neurons. All right. Number 4 has to do with brain health. Walking keeps your brain sharp for all the reasons we said. It's very helpful for fat fighting and good lifestyle choices. And then finally, walking helps you sleep better. All right. Sleeping better, it means better brain health. Sleeping better means better gut health, and better gut health means better metabolic health, and gut health also means brain health. This is all kind of all tied together, and you can kind of see where, when we're younger, we don't really give two thoughts to how much sleep we need. Most people don't. We're too busy enjoying our lives. But as we get older, if you want to try to figure out how to lose weight, at a stage in life where maybe you're gaining some extra weight and you're trying to figure out, I don't really have time to join a gym or get a trainer, or maybe you don't have resources, enough money to do it. No worries. Cheapest thing in the world, the most inexpensive thing, the biggest return on your investment. Just go for a walk. 30 minutes of a brisk, vigorous walk, aerobic style exercise. It's going to be good for you. I promise. All right. And this is like the baseline. Of course, we can stack on top of that and figure out fancier and fancier things you can do. And by the way, so I'm making walking king, but it's clearly not the only thing. There's other lifestyle decisions you want to be making. And of course, the choice of foods that you eat, and the choice of how much food you eat and when you eat, all kind of fall in. These are going to be the topics of other videos that I'm doing, and I'll share with you guys. But again, right now, for this video, what I'm actually trying to make my case on is that when it comes to weight loss, walking is the simplest, most inexpensive, most sustainable thing you can actually do to actually get better overall health and actually get better metabolic health and lose weight at the same time. All right. So after having got all that, I hope you learned something new from this video. It's certainly fun talking about all this stuff.